This is my country, your country, our country. All Indians have a right to be proud of our country. Are you ready to feel a hit of pride? This is India at 75.
A mother tongue is the language that a human being learns from infancy. It is normally the native language of that person, and he learns it from his parents and other members of the family. And it is with this language that he first learns to relate socially with other people. I am Anisha Datta of Class 6 DPS Ruby Park, Kolkata, and today I am going to speak on the topic, the importance of mother tongue in our livelihood. Language is not just a means of communication. To a large extent, it pervades our culture and life and is indicative of the refinement of a race in many ways. It is intrinsic to an individual and the special bond one shares with the mother tongue. These days, we see the mother tongue losing importance to other languages. English being the international business language, one is forced to learn it to be competitive. While English as a unifying language is truly wonderful, we cannot allow the death of all other languages and dialects our country is proud of. Each language bears its own flavor, which is typical to the place of its origin and to the people who speak it. While all languages are a means of communicating, there is a distinctive style that each language has, and although one might be able to translate the gist of it, one can never hope to capture the flavor. If we don't give importance to mother tongue, then what will happen to our treasure trove of literary works like the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and the Vedas? The mother tongue is the true vehicle of wit. A man's native speech is an inseparable part of his personality and must never be lost. The mother tongue should be preserved at any cost to preserve the rich cultural fabric of our existence. The India that I envision is the one where learning is fun because we learn in our mother tongue.
Hello everyone, I am Deepli Harsha studying 9th standard in St. Vincent de Paul School. Today I want to talk about the social work that drives India's heart in the right place. In the first week that India entered the lockdown in March 2020, Prime Minister Narendra Modi called on NGOs to help the government by providing basic necessities to the underprivileged by supplying medical and protective gear and assisting with awareness campaigns on social distancing. The Niti Aayog reached out more than 90,000 NGOs and civil society organizations seeking assistance in delivering services to the poor. While the Supreme Court applauded the contribution and role played by NGOs in coming forward to help those in need. During this pandemic, many people fell sick, lost their jobs and had nothing to eat or nowhere to hide. However, in the midst of this tragedy and despair, we have also witnessed one of the greatest miracles of humanity, the power of solidarity, the power of people getting together to support each other, the power of NGOs. Vincent Ferrer, Rural Development Trust co-founder, used to say, we cannot leave the eradication of poverty and suffering to the government and big institutions. All of us play a role in constructing a better world where everyone lives in dignity and respect. We here in India have a long history of civil society organization based on the concepts of Dana and Seva, voluntary organizations, voluntary in spirit and without profit, making objectives were active in the cultural promotion, education, health and natural disaster relief as early as the medieval era. The voluntary service that need to help others is a part of our DNA as a nation. In the 18th and early 19th centuries, these organizations started to organize their activities in a more permanent and organized way. But it was with the independence that they got a big push. With independence came democracy, and with it, the values of the freedom, equality, and the importance of the humanity grew stronger. The fathers of the nation, the first 5 years plan, included NGOs as one of the pillars of the construction of New India. Any plan for social and economic regeneration should take into the account the services rendered by these agencies, and the state should give them maximum cooperation in strengthening their efforts. Today, about 1.5 million NGOs work in India, some big, some small, some focus on education, others on gender equality, health, culture, and sports. But all of them have something in common: volunteerism and a desire to build an incredible India. I am myself part of an NGO. What RDT is giving me cannot be touched or exchanged. It cannot be qualified or sold. RDT, through its Sports for Development program, is giving me courage, self-esteem, and strength. RDT is providing me with an opportunity that my mother, also born in rural area, could have never dreamed of. As I'm a girl from rural area who plays tennis and wants to see the world. I'm the future of this country, and I know that I need to have access to opportunities to achieve my dreams. For those who cannot realize their dreams by themselves, for them NGOs together with government, individuals and corporations are building a better tomorrow. Thank you.
The word of civil servants still holds a charm for the Indian youth. And why shouldn't it be? They are building blocks of the whole administration system in the country. The only thing that creates civil services different from other exams is competence. The respect people command after clearing the exam is unrivaled, as it is the toughest exam to crack in our country. Sometimes most brilliant students fail to get through the exam even in 4 or 5 attempts. The exam is so competitive in nature that sometimes well churned out ideas and methods fail to bring the desired result. Being a genuine topper or an IITian does not guarantee your success in civil services examination. If research is to be believed, 90% of the Indian parents dream their children to be IAS officers. In rural India, an IAS officer is viewed next to king, and it is inherent desire of every parent to see their kids get into prestigious civil services examination. The prestige and respect associated with the profession are priceless, and even if one is a Harvard graduate or an affluent person, one can't match the grandeur of an IAS officer. From space science to sericulture, from agriculture to diplomacy, you will find IAS officers leading from the helm, representing our country's interests at various fora and working delicately inside it, contributing to its growth and progress. With nearly 25 other allied services, it constitutes the steel frame of governance in India, responsible for enforcing law and order, implementing policy decisions, convincing projects, etc. Some IAS officers have set remarkable examples of grit and fearlessness to establish law and promote a just society. Some persons fought against sand mafia and corruption. Every single example is an inspiration to formative minds who would carry the torch into the future. And today, the services are not about the royalty and stature of a bureaucrat. It is more about contributing to society. It is no wonder that the youth of India aspires to be an IAS officer.
As is very rightly said by Benjamin Franklin, and I quote, "When the wells will dry, we'll know the worth of water." Unquote. Greetings everyone, I am Madhura Gaike from Stepping Stones High School, and I will be speaking about drought despair, how water positive is India. Now that the water levels have been depleting, we are realizing the importance of water in our lives. With a diverse population that is 3 times the size of the US, but 1/3 the physical size, India has the second largest population in the world, with 60% of the population being agriculture dependent. Water is therefore equivalent of being the backbone of the Indian economy to the irrigation facilities required. But unfortunately, because of the insatiable greed of some individuals, the reforms put to action by the government of India is only restricted to the urban areas, making the farmers in the rural areas turn to their last resort to dig up wells and utilize groundwater. Over the last 5 decades, the number of bore wells in India has increased from 1 million to 20 million. As a result, India has become the greatest exploiter of groundwater in the world. Rains and groundwater share a profound bond among themselves due to the hydrologic cycle. Because of haphazard human intervention, the groundwater levels have radically depleted, causing erratic, uneven and turbulent rains, leading to extensive drought situations in the country. Needless to say, this has led to thousands of helpless farmers committing suicide. I feel that if our motherland were to replenish her water levels, our government should implement immediate reforms to make sure that our country does not have to see a day where her people are fighting over a single drop of water. For example, following the water management infrastructure that is being followed in sustainably developed countries such as Finland. Finland's propaganda includes watershed management programs, aquifer recharging and tank rehabilitation activities, indeed making Finland a water-abundant country. India should take up these reforms on a small scale at the formative stage, of course, and then proceed to spread it nationwide and make efficient investments for the boom of these programs. Many NGOs, self-help organizations, and perhaps even individuals could come up to promote these reforms. With having the world's 17% population on the sacred land, we should channelize our numbers and together as a people foster practices like Shramadhan introduced by the Pani Foundation through their Satyameva Jayate Water Cup. I feel that every village in India should have their own Pani Foundation. Also, on the other hand, I want not only organizations to come up, but also every single individual to realize the enormity of the situation we are in right now and rise up as a whole to save our dear motherland from the wreckage. Thus, the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. No, it's not like that. We need to put a full stop to this ideology and go down a path where we ourselves will find a solution to our own problems. As the Article 21 of our Constitution guarantees us the right to quality and potable water, let us all work together in order to assert this right. Though our generation is called Generation Z, we should all come together to work in such a way that we become the Generation S, generation of solvers. And with this, I want all of us to think of not how water positive India is, but how to make India water positive. Thank you. Signing off, Madhura Gaike.
Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Sakshat Parat Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. My name is Nakshatra Bhamre and I am going to speak on the topic, what do our sirs and ma'am need to help their student? In ancient time, Guru was everything for his disciple, and the best example of a Guru and disciple is Dronacharya and Eklavya. We all know about them. In earlier time, Guru was having great respect in the society and he had a special place in every student's heart. Guru was facilitator. Earlier, teacher used to teach students by different methods. Few of them are storytelling, introspection, practical work, field knowledge, etc. Now we have developed so much in past few years. The indirect result is our teacher. Teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way of other. Behind every successful man, there is a successful teacher. And to make a successful teacher, our government has organized many webinars, seminars, faculty development programs and courses for them. These are beneficial for teacher as they give information about their field. Now, I feel that all the teachers should attain this and they are made mandatory in few institutions. Now, during this pandemic, we have faced lot of problem, and so our nation was on the verge to stop. But government declared that the process of teaching and learning will be conducted online. So I feel that it should be mandatory for all the teacher to learn the technology so that the process of teaching and learning will be continued. Now, government has declared that student can choose vocational courses. So I feel that teachers should guide their students that how to choose the vocational courses, and we should provide facilities to our teachers and train them that how to guide students for vocational courses. At least they should have basic knowledge about these vocational courses. Also, one more thing I would like to add that we should encourage our teachers to learn career counseling because it is very important. Many students are misguided and it can ruin their life. So I feel that it should be mandatory for all the teachers to learn career counseling because it will be beneficial for student and it will be more fruitful if the teacher will guide the student. I'd like to conclude by saying that we should provide teacher proper facilities so that they can help their students. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Namaste Universe, delivering messages, materials and miracles using the 5 elements of earth is not new to India. Brahmastra, Agniastra, Ramayana and Mahabharata are filled with fanciful strength and superpowers of warriors. Drawing inspiration from epics, IIT Kharagpur created the first indigenous drone, BIM. And then the fleet of Lakshya, Nishant, Aura, Rustam from DRDO in the late 1990s have changed the skyscape. All these for training, surveillance, target designation, delivering essentials to war zones, and have also helped in rescue operations. During the COVID-19 pandemic, its other uses were explored successfully. Sanitizing localities, making awareness announcements, delivering medical supplies, monitoring areas to ensure lockdown protocols, and spraying insecticides in Rajasthan during the locust swarm attack, and a lot more advantages. Foresight. It's that twin drone attack on Jammu Air Force Base which gave us an opportunity to revisit the potential of these flying machines, the drones. Government's liberalized policy to own and operate drones is surely going to create a revolution. E-property ledger Swamitwa scheme will be mapping 6.5 lakh villages and will enhance the lives of 900 millions of people in the next 4 years in their next 5 generations. The best part is that even a 10th grader can master this profession with the help of state-authorized institutions. And then, the army of these skilled pilots will deliver medicines and vaccines to remote areas, locate drug dealers' house, protect land, species and wildlife, lend a punch in the fight against poaching, check on gas and oil leakages in pipelines, etc. Accuracy and specificity. The digital twins will hunt storms and save lives and money. It will accomplish India's target of 1,000 drone swarms, a dynamic and offensive approach. This Sanjay Drishti will give a boost to Atmanirbhar Bharat and make India the pioneer of drone industry. Friends, drone story is fascinating and exciting. Don't be surprised if this event's hard copy of yours in awards and rewards of ours, the participants are drone delivered. Courtesy Drone Acharya, Dronacharya of this, the game changer in the next 75 years. Until next time then, Dhanyavad Universe.
My name is P. Shabir. I am studying in 10th class A section. India's impression as a golden bird, the land of spiritual knowledge, species, gold, diamond, as well as established. Mark Twain made an attempt to capture this deep bewildering phenomenon called India. He said, "This is indeed India, the land of dreams and romance, of fabulous wealthy and fabulous poverty, of splendors and rags, of hovels and palaces, of famines and pestilence, of genii and giants, and Aladdin lamps, and the tigers of elephants, the cobra and the jungle, the thousands of nations as yet, hundreds of tongues as a thousand religions on the India. Cradle of the human race, birthplace of the human speech, mother of the history, grandmother of the legend, great grandmother of the tradition. India's tradition of non-violence and pluralism. Diversity and tolerance, yoga and Ayurveda, Bollywood are well known, and in recent years, the Indian leaders have promoted to advertisement to this develop its strategic importance. The instance India celebrated when 2014 UN means United Nations adopted 21st as June International Yoga Day. Going back in time, our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru has died as the General Assembly on 1948. He shaped a paved for the India in the UN. His speech diffused the Mahatma Gandhi, and he said to be spoke the need to be prioritize peace building. He will align with the UN and the since its as inception. 2 years before gaining independence in the British on October 1945, India became one of the founding members in the UN. From the beginning, it active part of drafting in the human rights and declaration, having decolonization of predicaments and decolonization. Strongly, India stand on decolonization on the UN. However, he changed during from the Indo-China War in 1962 to 1976. The situation of the faced the problems in low profile on the UN. Importance of the opinion on the UN. NPT as known as Non-Proliferation Treaty has kept it in the India at backstage. India was always highlighted in the UN, and India was always highlighted in the UN and the international organization that reflects on the contemporary priorities of the UNSC means United Nations Security Council. India supported the argument that the composition of the UNSC is similar to what was it in the World War II. Even though the number of countries and the number of members in the UN increasing the 113 to 193 in UN is expanded the 1963 on 4 non-permanent members. As it is clear since very beginning India it's evolving support so soft power to be garnered to the attention. It by focusing of the soft power of the assets, culture, diplomacy of we are evolving from soft power of the nation. Thank you.
India has come to numerous businessmen and many of them are on the top 500 list of Fortune. It is no surprise that Ambanis and Tatas are one of them. But why is it not astonishing? What makes them two obvious names on the list? It's their business acumen and ability to overcome obstacles that has established their names in the ranks of India's richest. If we look back, Indian entrepreneurship firms have gone through a plethora of changes in the last 3 decades. The most significant change in the result of government policies that create a new political environment for Indian businesses. Indian business suddenly took off with a new outburst of energy and enthusiasm in the 1990s that was unprecedented in the post-independence era. Both Tata and Reliance Industries have a successful businesses owned by them are not built overnight but took years to grow into a glorious name. Along with the large customer community, their industries are took for their established subdomains which are satisfying all the major sectors of the economy. Their business are not only boon to the economy but also the well-being of people as they are the top philanthropists of the country. In 21st century witnessed Indian companies scaling new heights in the digital world, India found itself ready to transform itself into a leading digital society. The new year's Indian entrepreneurs were also facilitated by the process of digitalization like Paytm, Ola Cab, Flipkart and Zomato. India is a land full of potential Tatas and Ambanis. The young innovators of today are custodians of a digitally empowered society and future for India. These qualities play an immense role if a change has to be brought about in any society or nation. Mentoring and nurturing this young talent will help the nation address the myriad problems that it is facing today.